Hey guys, welcome to episode 119 of Stand Up. Joining me in the classroom today is former CIA agent and current Savannah, Georgia police officer Patrick Skinner. Then my old friend, contributor, and subscriber to the show, Cornell Woolrich, will join me to talk about his black experience in America. And I'm very happy to have all of you. I'm Pete Dominick. Time to stand up with me right now. Hey gang, happy Thursday. It is June 4th if you're listening in chronological order on the day of. Thank you very much for being with me today. Thank you for taking me with you. I know many of you tune in the morning, in a morning walk, you're walking your dog, you're in the car on the way to work, if people still go to work. Either way, very happy to be with you. I've got an awesome couple of guests joining me today. A longtime listener and subscriber to the show, Dr. Steven, who lives down in North Carolina, has said I really should get a police officer's perspective. And so I reached out to a few, and I heard back from my old friend Patrick Skinner. I met him years ago through our mutual friend Ali Soufan, who's a former FBI agent. And Ali introduced me to a bunch of national security people, including Patrick Skinner, who used to be a CIA agent. He served in Jordan and Afghanistan and Iraq. And after years in the CIA and working for the federal government, he then decided to move back to his hometown of Savannah, Georgia. And at the age of 44, he became a police officer, a beat cop. Now has been promoted to a detective, but he's got a very original, unique, and thought-provoking perspective on policing in America. So I'm very excited to have him joining me. And Cornell Woolrich is a longtime listener and caller and contributor to the show. He's a subscriber to the show. He posted a fascinating, heartfelt, heart-wrenching, emotional message on Facebook that got a lot of shares. And so I reached out to Cornell to talk with him about his black experience, and I'm going to share that Facebook post and then our conversation. Those are both coming up. Before I get to both of my guests, there's a few clips I grabbed for today's show that I want to play for you. First of all, the last president, remember him? Barack Obama. President Obama came out and held kind of a virtual town hall yesterday. Had a lot to say, but here's just a quick clip of President Obama.
This country's going to get better. Now, I want to speak directly to the young men and women of color in this country, who, as Playon just so eloquently described, have witnessed too much violence and too much death. And too often, some of that violence has come from folks who were supposed to be serving and protecting you. I want you to know that you matter. I want you to know that your lives matter, that your dreams matter. And when I go home and I look at the faces of my daughters, Sasha and Malia, and I look at my nephews and nieces, I see limitless potential that deserves to flourish and thrive. And you should be able to learn and make mistakes and live a life of joy without having to worry about what's going to happen when you walk to the store or go for a jog or driving down the street or looking at some birds in a park. And so I hope that you also feel hopeful, even as you may feel angry, because you have the power to make things better, and you have helped to make the entire country feel.
How about that? There he is, President Obama. As of the time I'm laying this down, still haven't heard from Trump regarding President Obama speaking. I think he's hesitated a lot to say anything because he doesn't want Trump to have a target in terms of someone to rant about and react to. So he's taking a risk there because he doesn't want to be a distraction. That is President Obama, I mean. But I love what he had to say, and we'll see how the current president reacts to the past president. It's probably going to be ugly, let's be honest. All right, so speaking of ugly, another thing that happened yesterday was one of the most talented and successful quarterbacks in NFL history, still active, is New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees. And, of course, you'd have to be living in another country or at another time period to not understand the controversy around the NFL that started with Colin Kaepernick, the former 49ers quarterback, taking a knee during the national anthem to protest police brutality, racism in general, I think, in America. And so Drew Brees gave an interview with Yahoo Finance for some reason, and the Yahoo Finance reporter asked Drew Brees a question about when they come back, how is he going to deal with the kneeling during the protest. And listen, because this reporter points out specifically that it was not about the military, it was about police brutality. Drew Brees' answer here was considered very controversial. I'd love to know what you think. Here is that right now.
Everyone is looking back now at Kaepernick's protests from a few years ago, and obviously they were always about police brutality, and now it's coming back to the fore, and a lot of people expect that we will see players kneeling again if and when the NFL season starts. I'm curious how you think the NFL will and should respond to that, and of course, you're such a leader in the league. What is your responsibility as a leader in times like this for the rest of your teammates and players in the league?
Well, I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. Let me just tell you what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and when I look at the flag of the United States. I envision my two grandfathers who fought for this country during World War II, one in the Army and one in the Marine Corps, both risking their lives to protect our country and to try to make our country and this world a better place. So every time I stand with my hand over my heart, looking at that flag and singing the national anthem, that's what I think about. And in many cases, it brings me to tears, thinking about all that has been sacrificed, not just those in the military, but for that matter, those throughout the civil rights movements of the 60s, and everyone and all that has been endured by so many people up until this point. And is everything right with our country right now? No, it's not. We still have a long way to go. But I think what you do by standing there and showing respect to the flag with your hand over your heart is it shows unity. It shows that we are all in this together. We can all do better, and that we are all part of the solution.
Woo-wee. The reaction to that across social media was swift, with the most talented and respected current active professional basketball player, LeBron James, tweeting, "Wow, man, is it still surprising at this point? Sure isn't. You literally still don't understand why Cap was kneeling on one knee. Has absolute nothing to do with disrespect of the flag and our soldiers, men and women who keep our land free. My father-in-law was one of those." Then I saw comments like, "The kneeling protest never disrespected the flag, nor the military or the country. We've known this for long enough that one can state definitively that Drew Brees is being intellectually dishonest with his statement. To argue this now, though, it's especially so, and cruel." And then finally answering this question by starting off with, "Let me tell you what I see and what I feel," is immediately disregarding alternative perspectives. This is the response of someone who actively chooses not to understand the situation. So Drew Brees getting dragged for his answer to that question. And the final thing I want to play with you is I listened to this like 40 times. In Los Angeles, they had a town hall of sorts where the police chief, whose name is Michael Moore, yeah, that's his name, was present. And one of the people that called into this Zoom chat kind of town hall had this to say when he had the opportunity. And I should warn you, it's very, very vulgar.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter, defund the police. I find it disgusting that the LAPD is slaughtering peaceful protesters on the street. I had two friends go to the protest in Beverly Hills a couple of days ago, and the protest was peaceful until the police showed up with their excessive violent force, shooting rubber bullets and throwing tear gas. Is this what you think of protecting and serving? Because I think it's bullshit. Fuck you, Michael Moore. I refuse to call you an officer or a chief because you don't deserve those titles. You are a disgrace. Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Thank you, Juan Ramirez.
Wow. How about that, huh? Yeah, it was pretty ugly. And also hilarious, I thought. I don't know. Maybe you don't think so. I thought that was very funny. Okay, let's get to my gets for today's show. And thank you again for joining me on it today. Thank you for your subscriptions. If you haven't joined with a paid subscription, I'd love to have you be a part of our community. We had an amazing gathering online on Tuesday night. I'd love to see you in one of those, which I'm going to try to do weekly to keep us together and allow us to share ideas and vent and support each other, because you are not alone. I say it every day. So check out the paid subscription link in the show notes or go to patreon.com/Pete Dominick. 600 people now subscribing to the show. We need a lot more to be able to continue to sustain it, but I can see that there is a lot of opportunity for me and for all of us that are contributing to this show. So thank you very much for supporting me on it. And let's get to my first guest. He is Patrick Skinner, who is a very interesting guy. He is a former CIA case officer. He's got extensive experience in source handling and source networks. We talked a little bit about that. He specialized in counterterrorism. I met him through my friend Ali Soufan, I think I mentioned earlier. After leaving the CIA for, I think he said 7 years, he worked as the director of special projects for Ali Soufan's organization, the Soufan Group. In addition to his intelligence experience, he's also has law enforcement experience with the Federal Air Marshal Service and the U.S. Capitol Police before he was in CIA, as well as the Coast Guard. He was in U.S. Coast Guard Search and Rescue. Now he is an active member of the Savannah Police Department and a really interesting, great guy. I enjoyed our conversation about policing and what he thinks needs to change. He's on Twitter at Skinner PM, where he's fantastic. Definitely follow him there. Here's a conversation from his home in Savannah right now. All right, I've got him now. Patrick Skinner down in Savannah. Let's be clear. He is not speaking on behalf of the police department he works for or anybody else, only speaking for himself. I said it so you didn't have to.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me, buddy. It's great to get you on at this really important time with everything that's going on. So, folks, most folks probably aren't familiar with you and your background. Tell me a little bit about what you did in counterterrorism for years before you decided to come home and join your hometown police force there in Savannah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm born and raised from Savannah. Left, 89. Went in the Coast Guard, had a lot of fun, loved search and rescue, it was great. Ended up going to school, getting a degree in English, creative writing, because I thought that was my future. And then became a Capitol Police officer before 9/11 because I lived on Capitol Hill. It really was that choice. It was like, hey, I don't want to commute, and I could just be a Capitol Police officer. 9/11 happened. I applied for the agency the next day, along with another 100,000 people. For some reason, they got in touch with me, and I didn't stink up the interviews too badly, and they picked me. And so, actually, I didn't even want to be an overseas officer. I was going to be a desk person in headquarters because I lived in the DC area, and my wife was in the Coast Guard. It turns out they knew me better than I knew myself. They said, we're going to hire you, but not for a desk job. You're not an office type person. You're incredibly offensive. And so I agreed, and I ended up taking the operations officer. So that's a great job. That's the recruiter. You go to the farm, get trained, and then I was in the Counterterrorism Center, CTC, and so that's what I did from 2003 to the end of 2010. I worked on counterterrorism. Lived in Jordan for years, multiple tours in Afghanistan. Did a year in Iraq. That was my last tour, was in Iraq. And I ended up leaving. Still one of the coolest jobs I've ever had. I needed to come home and take care of my dad, who was dying of Alzheimer's. And it was just time to leave. I'd kind of been burned out a little bit, and I wasn't disillusioned so much. Maybe I was, but it was just a good time to leave to take care of my family, and that's what I did.
How can you describe the responsibilities of that job?
It's pretty intense. It's when you're handling sources, their safety is your safety, but also, it's your ultimate responsibility. If you mishandle a foreign intelligence asset, the best scenario is they get in prison and their family becomes destitute. The more likely case is they're killed. And in counterterrorism, that's what's going to happen. If because you don't know what you're doing, if you make a mistake, they're going to get killed. Sometimes it doesn't even matter. They might make a mistake or just bad luck. They get killed, or other people. And so it was a stressful job, but it was a great job. Worked with great people. I loved the dynamic of talking to people, trying to understand their motivations. It's not like in the movies. We don't use blackmail. We don't use leverage or pressure. It was just trying to find the motivation of somebody and then helping them fulfill it. Sometimes that was money. Sometimes it was a sense of, even in Iraq or, Afghanistan, people don't want to waste their life. And so that's why they join anything. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And we could offer that. We could say, hey, you can actually help. But so I did actually pretty well. And so I handled cases, recruited spies. It was a great job. It was hard to decompress from that, because even when you were off, you were worried about the people that you would send into some dicey places.
Sure. How do you think a lot about the relationships and the people that you that you met in Jordan, in Iraq, and Afghanistan?
Sure. I mean, every now and then I'll read a news article of some official that I knew that was killed. And yeah, it was a tough game. It's nothing like the movies. It was very, if it got dramatic, that meant you'd done something wrong or you were unlucky. The whole point was to not be dramatic and not be seen. I mean, I think about them and I think about that it was an amazing job and I was honored to be part of it. It's very different than what people think. It was the most apolitical place I've ever seen. I don't know what people talking about deep state. I don't know. I guess I wasn't deep enough because when I was in headquarters, not very much. My parking sucked, and I didn't know anyone's political affiliations. So this was from 2003 to 2010, and so we didn't. I don't ever remember talking politics ever, like literally ever. We hung out with each other. It was a really close bond. It was like being at a fire station, for firefighters.
Right.
We kind of worked,
that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. We worked together, played together, drank together a lot. And it was also kind of myopic because it was pretty narrow focus. If I could go back in time, I probably would have been I wouldn't have isolated myself enough just with agency people. I probably would have expanded my network, but also my social contacts, and I would have been a better officer overall, but also would have been, interesting.
How much do you think about what the mission was there in terms of, obviously in Iraq, you were trying to fight against an insurgency. In Afghanistan, you were trying to obviously fight against the Taliban. And it was all, we always hear about hearts and minds and changes people's loyalties and allegiances. And there's a lot of similarity, I think, probably, I've heard you talk about this with policing in your neighborhood where you live. But what are the similarities between what you did CIA overseas and what you're doing in Savannah?
I think that it's not even similarities. It's almost the exact same job. Now, here my real name is on my shirt. That's that's not CIA. That's pretty cool to have my real name on a shirt. But other than that, I think a lot of local police is what I was trying to do overseas, at least what we tried to do. You wanted to connect with people, but we couldn't, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan. I worked in the Middle East and non-war zones a lot, and that was more traditional espionage, low-key restaurant, whatever those meetings were. But in the war zones, you could just see it because I really wasn't a part of it. I was a tourist, a well-compensated, well-intended tourist, but a tourist nevertheless. And so I could see what we were doing. In fact, Afghanistan, I went a lot. And so the first year I spent there were very few Americans. This was in 2003. The last time I went was in 2011. Just left the agency. And there were a lot more troops, and it was a lot worse. And every time I went back in between those 7.5 years, I would see that it had gotten worse. So we would just say, okay, whatever we're doing, we just need to do it more, double it, triple it. And we're going to win hearts and minds. And I heard that a lot. Now, I wasn't in the hearts and minds business at a macro level. I was doing it on an individual level. I needed to win their motivation and, trust to a degree. I never actually lied to anybody. But I could see what we were doing was absolutely insane, that we kept talking about winning hearts and minds, and we didn't know anything. We didn't know the people. We were in these sheltered areas. We commuted to work, basically. And so I saw it every day, and it always struck me as insane and terrible. You drive by and throw bottled water or soccer balls out of a truck and for kids and say, hey, we're doing good. And then, you destroy the town. And, that's the balance of the equation. We're in the red. And so I left. I came back here to take care of my parents. And then I walked around my neighborhood. I live in East Savannah. It's, let's just say I'm crime adjacent. It is a neighborhood ripe with opportunity. And so when I wasn't traveling, I walked around my neighborhood and I could see. Now in Savannah police, they're not a military police force. They're actually pretty good. But I could see what we were trying to do. And I'd hear local leaders and more importantly, national leaders talk about this war on crime. And I had just basically, left the war on terror And so I could see we're trying to do the same thing here. We're trying to find selective agents of influence, meaning, hey, let's get some person in a church or who's ever head of this neighborhood association. That's our guy or that's our woman, and we're going to work with them. And once a month, we're going to have a meeting for 30 minutes, and we're going to talk about how awesome we are and what we're going to be serving at the next meeting next month, what kind of snacks. And in the meantime, criminals worked 24 hours a day, but also there was just this disconnect between the police and the people. And so I could see it. I wasn't a police officer yet. I'd spent years with the Sufan group, but I spent that time, if I wasn't traveling up to New York or overseas, I was literally walking around my neighborhood. And I could just see that everything I was talking about overseas, I felt like a fraud. I mean, I've said it before, and it's the only way I can put it. I felt like a fraud. I was talking about places that I really didn't understand anymore, and I really never understood them in the first place. And I realized, I would write papers or give lectures or speeches or television appearances and say, we have to focus on the community in Syria, where we have absolutely no hope of doing that. And at the same time, I mean, on Earth, we could do that. Here, there is no excuse on Earth why we can't do it here, and we weren't. And so it started to rub me, and then I decided, when I was 46, to be dumb, and I said, I think I know what to do, and it was to get closer to people.
That's
why it
why
sounds Pollyannish, yeah, but that's what I did.
And you joined the Savannah Police Department.
Yeah, I was a 46-year-old rookie cop. I went through the academy. It was the state version of the federal version of FLETC that I had gone through almost 20 years before. And then, so I went through a basic law enforcement training, which was for the state certification. And then I went through the same thing for Savannah, department specific. But I was much older, much flabbier. But I had also seen what they were trying to do. I'd seen it in a lot of places. And I was just watching like this well-intended training, which was about a war. And it was about a war on crime now. And
right.
And I don't mean that's a metaphor. They're saying this is a war on crime. We are the protectors. We are the guardians. That's the best of the examples. Usually it's we are warriors, sheepdog, punishers, Spartans, whatever it is. And I understand it because they want to motivate us. They want to keep, some kind of a cadre of elites. You want to feel good about what you're doing. But I could see it as, even though I was training that, I was kind of like outside of my body seeing it because I'd already done it. And I saw that it didn't work, and I saw it wasn't going to work here. In fact, it hasn't. And so I just kind of, I did the training. I did, I got my certificate, and I hit the streets. And I hit the streets in Savannah's Central Precinct, which is true inner city. I mean, I don't know, whether 200,000 people in Savannah. It's a high crime southern city. It's got a lot of crime. It's got historic racism, segregation, and then a lot of guns. And so I got to quickly see what worked and what didn't.
Does the militarization of policing work? Or actually, I should ask you how to explain that, having been so adjacent, working with the military at the CIA and working in all these other countries, and now working as a police officer. For how many years have you been now with the SPD?
3.5, I guess.
So how do you describe this phrase? I've been telling people lately to watch this documentary called Do Not Resist, which is a great documentary about how police forces, local, state, and more national have been militarized. And what does that mean? And is it effective?
I'll answer the second question first. No, it's not. And it's not just not effective. It's counterproductive in a way. It's hard for me to exaggerate. I can't describe how bad it is. For the first part, militarization, it first started from the military taking surplus stuff because we're going to buy all these, Humvees and Bearcats. We're going to buy a lot of them, and maybe we don't use enough of them, and our allies won't buy enough of them. So let's give them I think it's some kind of 33, the code, whatever, where they passed surplus military stuff to the departments, and it was free. And local departments are really, really struggling for money. And so free stuff, I mean, we'll take free coffee. And if you give us a free Humvee, I mean, I'm going to faint. And so now you've got a free Humvee. And, well, you know what? You're going to find some time to use it.
The 1033 program.
Okay, yeah, 1033. And so that would give surplusing. I mean, there were some, in theory, some stipulations and restrictions, but of course, who cares? We have our Bearcat. And it went way beyond that, though. So, in the 90s, this is a bipartisan issue. Clinton, everyone did it. I think Balco's written the best about it.
Bradley Balco wrote a great book about it. Yeah.
Yes, great. And so, but like overseas, when I was in the two war zones, which were wars on terror, where we were trying to win the hearts and minds, and we were doing collective punishment. We were, basically it was stop and frisk on steroids. But not too much more, because they just stopped and searched everybody.
Right.
And so you would see military police or soldiers, not even just in the MP units, but actual soldiers on corners, standing there with an automatic rifle, with their sunglasses on, with full armor. And in places where you're probably, you want to have, that armor. But that was like, hey, we're winning the hearts and minds, we're providing stability, and it did no such thing. It made them targets, but also it amped up the volume of everything. And that was because there was no hearts and minds campaign to sway people over, to avoid the fact that you're an occupying army. We were. Whatever. In both cases, we broke it, we owned it, and we put cops or military people on corners and called them cops. And so we started in the U.S., really amped up in the 90s, but then really, really happened after 9/11, giving military equipment, because the war on terror, the war on crime has been, I'm pretty sure it's like Nixon was the phrase, but tough on crime. 80s Reagan, 90s had they had their judicial reform and sentencing, and a lot of draconian stuff. But after 9/11, you started getting, the amount of equipment we got was staggering, and so they're going to use it. But it wasn't just the Bearcats. It was, hey, let's dress these police officers like soldiers. And so they had Molly gear. They had tactical vests. They wore external vests. And from a comfort level, I would love, instead of having a duty belt like Batman,
right?
I would love to have a vest that would spread the load around, and have all my stuff and put my little turkey sandwich in there. Who cares? But it made them look like soldiers, but it did something more than that. So the visual was really repulsive to people that live there, because now they are being occupied. I don't care how well-intended, I don't care, how many neighborhood meetings you go to, you're still that guy wearing full armor, probably not an M4, but you got a lot of rounds for your 45 or whatever you have, your pistol, and you're wearing shades, of course, because you don't want people to see your eyes. But so it made people think that these people were soldiers, but which is bad enough. And it was. The initial impression is terrible, but it did a lot worse than that. It made the person wearing that costume think they're a soldier. And then the training was all about, it still is. Right now, it's all about officer safety, which I understand, because I don't want to die, but my safety is not the point of the job. If I want it to be safe, well, then officer safety, just leave me in the precinct. That's safety. The military did that too, where force protection was the goal. I'm like, well, how is that the goal? You aim for that, but the goal is something completely different. Hopefully it's something worth risking your life for.
Right.
And so we decided we're not going to risk our lives for our neighbors. We're going to risk their lives. And we dressed like soldiers and increasingly acted like it. We barked at orders at people. We were dressed like RoboCop, and then you do that for long enough and you become that. You start calling people in your neighborhood civilians. Well, then that implies, and then it actually becomes reality, that you're not a civilian. You're, special. And I understand why people use it, because they mean non-police. But you know what? You can just use the word non-police. How about that? Or just people. That would, Jesus Christ, just call them people. And so Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah, it's
but,
an important point, though.
But
it's
the
an important
equipment,
point.
and so then the equipment, you have all this equipment, you're dressed as a soldier, you have this stuff, and then the next step is to start acting like it, and then the tactics. Everything is about the overwhelming domination of force.
Right.
And so I don't want to brag, but I was in the Coast Guard, and I remember going through. So I focused on search and rescue, but on the ship, I was also a boarding officer, and this is when the Coast Guard was under the Department of Transportation, and so I would do. It sounds really exciting, but I would do fishery patrols off the coast of Maine or Cape Cod and stuff, and we would measure lobster. Yay, because they were taking baby lobsters.
Actually, sounds like an awesome job. Actually, sounds like
cool.
An awesome job. I do. If they hired me to do that job right now, I'd definitely consider it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, I like lobster, and
like being outside.
I went to what was that, Otis Air National Guard Base in the middle of Cape Cod, and I went to something called lobster school, and it was a whole week where I learned about lobster. Pretty cool. And so, but that was and that made me a federal law enforcement officer. I was certified or whatever that all that meant. And I remember then that the terminology and the training was minimal force to compel compliance. That was the exact word, and not just the word, but that was the policy. It was minimal, not force. It was minimal force to compel compliancy. So that's what it meant. It meant exactly that. You got to use the least amount of force to get control of the situation. That is not the standard anymore. And the Supreme Court has upheld it. The Georgia Supreme Court has upheld it, which is because I work for both. And so the standard now is reasonable force, not minimal, because they felt that, that could, constrained me, and I have this bazooka, and why can't I use this bazooka? And so the now standard is reasonable force, and it's not what you would normally think. It's what would a reasonable officer in your situation do, which is fine, because it's good to be judged by the people that know what you're doing and know your training and stuff like that. And I get it. But the problem was our training was for war. So my reasonable colleagues, and myself included, of course it's reasonable if I use that force because we're in a war. And it's not semantics, it's a mindset.
Right.
And so I keep telling people, everybody hopes it's a training issue. They hope all you got to do is just change this PowerPoint deck, and we got it. We got that.
Right.
Maybe take out 15% of the defensive tactics class and throw in a pro forma citizen engagement de-escalation class.
Conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution. And they can't even get that right because the gold standard is something called verbal judo, because so you can deflect people that are being angry. And even I was like, that is the opposite of communication. That's being an asshole. I mean, that's like and one of the gold standards is you are supposed to deflect whatever anyone's saying to you, because there's no way in hell you're supposed to listen to what they say to you. So you're just waiting for them to stop, and then you go, I appreciate that, but. And the training there actually shows the guy doing his hands like judo, and he says, I appreciate that, but, and then you're supposed to pivot to whatever it is you want to tell them to do, because it's all about them doing what you want to tell them to do. And so it's that training is, we are training for that because we're in a war on crime, and it's not a training issue. The training isn't broken. The training is spot on. It works. I mean, what people are slowly, beginning to understand is that's what we're training for, because that's what we ask. That's what we believe it means to be a police officer in the United States.
You're saying, just to be clear, the training works for a war on crime, but it's not. But the solution that's being offered is inappropriate for the problem. You're looking at the problem completely wrong, and so you're solving the wrong problem. I'm just trying to say it differently and be more specific.
Yeah. So basically, people are saying that the problem with the police and their misconduct and criminal acts is an issue of training. And I disagree. The training is actually not flawed. The training is, the result is terrible, but that's what the training is for, because the training is guided by the ethos and the mindset. And this isn't like fancy talk, semantics and stuff. We believe that we are warriors. We are told from day one, we are the thin blue line. We are told that we are punishers. We are told that we're sheepdog. And these might be well-intended. They used to be well-intended, but now they're not. And I was like, man, wait a second. So everything we do. So for the first day, you tell us we're the bravest people on earth. I get it. And I understand, motivating people, I guess. I get it. And, everyone wants to be proud of what they do. But what we wanted us to be proud to do is to have a war on crime. And that made us warriors. But I quickly, and I mean quickly, understood that we are not at war with our neighbors, and we must not be at war with our neighbors. And also, I'm not a sheepdog because my neighbors aren't sheep. And I'm not a Punisher because I'm not a cartoon character. And I'm not a Spartan because I'm not in good shape. I don't know what that means. But it's not the training. Now, you will have to we will have to change the training. We will. Cops do need defensive tactics. In fact, the better you get at using your hands and your knees and stuff, the less you need to use other, less lethal weapons.
Guns, tasers, batons.
Guns. Yeah, exactly. And it's and what we call less lethal means it probably won't kill you. But these are they're devastating. You get shot with a rubber bullet. It's not good.
Yeah, I've seen those wounds lately. Yeah,
I mean, you can blind, you can be killed. And we call it, and because we call it less lethal, that means we can use it a lot more.
Right. The thinking.
There's no indiscriminate. And so I just started thinking, I'm not lacking in training. I'm lacking in my mission. My mission is to protect, or actually just to attack crime. It's a war on crime. And it was exactly, sometimes word for word, what I was hearing overseas when it's a war on terror. It's us versus them. And the them kept getting bigger while the us kept getting, smaller. And so we all get the defensive, we're under attack. And there are people that hate cops. A lot of people might even have good reasons to hate cops. I get it, but we're not working for them. I'm working for the 99% of the people who just don't want to be treated like crap. And I'm not asking them to be friends. I'm hoping for neutral. I'll take that. And so, it happened quickly where I was working and I was like, wow, we're so aggressive, and Savannah is a really good, and I'm not like just covering up my department. It's a good department because it is community-based. We don't have a lot of uses of forces. We do, but they're very justifiable and even inevitable, which is the key I always think about. We don't treat our neighborhoods like ATMs or like occupied territories. It's, we do pretty good.
And other departments definitely do, though.
You can see it on TV. You just see it. Smaller departments, maybe some big departments just because of numbers. But also, when your mindset is war, then, you can have your little, we had this meeting and I handed out teddy bears. And it's kind of cool because these teddy bears have cop uniforms on them. So that makes me a good, yay, look at us. In the meantime, we're over policing the living Jesus out of people by stopping them in poor neighborhoods. You can stop them. You can stop a car for any reason because every car's got something wrong with it. You rolled a stoplight, your tail light's broken. Yeah. There's 1,000 reasons. And so stop and frisk is just one part of that. It's just this relentless law enforcement. And I started drawing a line between being a cop and law enforcement, because like federal law enforcement, the FBI, they do investigations. Almost everything else is asset or personnel protection at the federal level. Capitol Police, they protect the literal Capitol and the senators. Secret Service, Uniform Division protects the building. The Secret Service agents protect the people. But that's law enforcement. They tell people to do stuff and they do it. It's like, and so we basically made cops like being a traffic stop, because you're telling someone to do something and they have to do it. And so, but it's crazy. So, but a cop is not that. We get dispatched to most of the calls we get because people call 911 for everything, because we ask them to. And so you go to these calls and it's not a crime. It is annoying. It is sometimes batshit crazy, bizarre, sometimes humorous, but it matters to them. And we ask them to call. And the worst thing we can do is to piss on them when they trust the system enough to call 911 instead of sticking a fork in their husband's forehead. And so, but that's cop. Law enforcement is, you have done something wrong and I must correct you. It's basically an armed hall monitor in elementary school. Go back and walk. It's you're telling people to stay in this lane. When being a local cop, you're trying to make connections. You're just trying to lower the tension, postpone the next 911 call, and make a minor, small connection, make people feel better for calling 911. I don't focus on uses of force. I've had them, actually not many, I think 2, and they were not bad.
What's an example?
Like point a gun at somebody in a felony car stop. There was a shootout, and I had to, a felony car stop is when you get over the loudspeaker and say, person, get out of the car with your hands, because they have a gun, or at least they were just shooting. And so if we point our gun at somebody, that is a use of force. You have to write it up. It is reviewed. I mean, it's a big deal. If you touch somebody more than you have just to put cuffs on, I mean, if they kind of squirm and you just have to grab their arm and then put cuffs on, that's not a use of force. But anything other than that is, if you trip somebody, if you strike somebody in any form or fashion, that's a use of force. I don't know. I think I've got 140 arrests now. And I have very few uses of forces. And some of that is because I'm slower than the guys who actually catch the guy and get it. I accept that. But a lot of it is, and luck. I mean, luck is very important. But also it's the fact that I'm going to spend, if you're not hurting somebody right now or breaking something right in front of me or standing in front of a car about to get run over, I've got some time. I'll let you scream for 5 minutes or whatever it takes. We'll figure it out. You might go, and go to jail. Who knows? I don't know. I find that stuff's easy. If there's probable cause for an arrest, make the arrest. That's easy. The mechanics sometimes are complicated, but not a big deal. But most calls are not crime. They're near crime. They're trending towards crime. They're loud. If you didn't show up, maybe it would turn into a crime. And too often cops show up and these people are teetering, they're like tipsy. And you can either nudge them over into the crime or into an arrest, and it would be justifiable. It would be legally and policy-wise justifiable. But I'm not aiming for that. I'm aiming for inevitable, because I'm not going to bring the violence. You have to do it. And so I've got all the time in the world to let you vent, let you walk away. I'll let you save face. I tell people, I lean forward and I say, hey, man, I don't want to punk you in front of your family. And I'm short and little, so I'm kind of used to people being close to me and being over me anyway, so I don't really care. And I'll let the guy yell at me. You can call me whatever you want. You're not calling other people stuff, but you can call me whatever you want. I don't care. And we're going to come to some agreement. And hey, if you just walk away now, good. You can call me whatever you want as you're walking away. I don't care. Just walk away. And so I started spending a lot of time doing that, and it ended up saving a lot of time, because arrests are those are time consuming, right? And I like it when I don't have to arrest somebody. Now, I take a lot of pride in making, felony arrest with domestic violence and crime, violent crimes. I take a lot of pride. I'm now a detective. I really like that. But most of the calls we deal with are not that. We deal with people that they haven't had 2 lucky days in their life. They have absolutely garbage judgment. They make terrible decisions. And I just, some people are insistent on going to jail, but most people are they really just want to have drama, or they want to be heard at a certain level. And I'm going to deny them their chance for drama. I will listen, and actually listen. But I'm not going to let you sucker me into or goad me into taking you to jail. You're going to have to step. You're going to actually have to do a crime. And it's so different from what I saw overseas. And I'm not the only one. I mean, I was trained. I mean, the people I work with, they trained me to do that. I think I'm more intentional. And I just have I just think about it a lot more. I say this is the most intentional thing I've ever done, and it is.
Right. Yeah. I like when you talk about that. What did you think when you saw the video of this police officer with his knee on George Floyd's neck?
And so it came on the heel of this guy, Ahmed Arbery, who was jogging Brunswick, Georgia's like 45 minutes south of here. He was a guy, black guy running through the neighborhood, and the 2 white guys plus his trailer, his film car, they basically tried to kidnap him and then murdered him in the street. And every cop I talk to, now granted, I might be self-selecting because I don't really try to hang out with assholes, but they're all like, yeah, that's a murder. That's flat out. What those people did is a murder. There's no way.
Even down south, they said that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're like, that is a flat out murder. I mean, you can't pull a gun on someone and tell them to get in your car because you're making a citizen arrest. I don't know what the hell. I mean, good for you. But you don't have to comply with that because that's not a lawful order. And the guy, they're like, he grabbed the gun. I'm like, they pointed it at him. But anyway, so they murdered him. So that actually got some attention down here. And people were very, very, that was easy because it wasn't the police. I'll say that, it was these two yokels murdering a guy because he was black and he matched the suspect of a crime that hadn't even committed. It's just, everything about it was wrong. There's no way to justify it. I was at work, at my, desk doing detective stuff. And I heard about the Minnesota, with Lloyd, right? Or is it Floyd?
George Floyd.
George Floyd, yeah. And I usually don't watch a lot of videos. I kind of read about him. I don't really want to watch that. But I did, and it was a murder, and it was just horrifying. I'm looking right at it, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I'm watching it, and I can hear the people. This was the first thing that came out was that lady who was shooting it. I think she live streamed it or something. And so you clearly see this guy with his neck and the angle. This guy's neck is really compressed. It's something that I don't care if he had murdered 8,000, orphans right before that. There's nothing. The guy is in handcuffs. There is nothing on earth you can say that to justify that. I don't care. I don't care if he was kicking the windows out of the car. I don't care if he was spitting hot poison, infectious saliva all over you. I don't care. You don't do that. He's in cuffs, and this guy wasn't even struggling. He was saying, "I can't breathe." And so I'm just looking at this cop, and he's just murdering this guy. He's just basically choking this guy out. And it was so bad. But what got me and what actually made me weep, and I'm a crybaby anyway, driving home, was looking at the cop, a little short, pudgy guy, off to the side, his partner, I guess, or whatever, the other cop, who kept looking back, but his job was to make sure no one stopped it. He didn't, he's not going to say that's what he was doing, but he was protecting the officer and making sure he could just murder that guy. And it's murder. That's assault and murder. It is. And I'm not defensive about police. I understand that I'm not to blame for that because I'm not a baby. I don't work in blame. I work in responsibility. And I am responsible because I'm a police officer. I wear the same uniform, took the same oath. And when I saw that, it was like, holy Jesus. That they did this. And so I knew, I told I talked to one of my fellow detectives guys, and he's like, yeah, they just flat out murdered that guy. And so then the protest, and I knew that this was going to explode. And all I hoped was that, there's no progress without, extreme, violence and chaos and with riots. I'm not encouraging that at all. But I knew something was going to happen, and it did. And I'm glad that people are talking about it. I'm kind of breaking my. I'm pretty vocal on Twitter, but I only talk about rather banal observations about being a good neighbor. I don't talk about arrests because I'm not. That's a legal matter. But I talk about things I see. Like I truly believe that what I'm doing and what other people are doing. I just have a better Twitter feed because of my cat. Is the right way. And in fact, and you can make it better if you're more intentional about it. If it's not just based on, hey, you're a good natured person, right. You don't want an ad hoc community policing. You want it change the mindset. And I always say again and again, change it all. And I mean that. And so this week I'm seeing that from something so horrible, and it's going to get worse, that there might be enough to change it.
I'm glad that you feel that way, and I hope that you're right about it. What do you say to people who argue that there are no good cops because the supposedly good cops will be turning in the bad cops, and nobody ever turns in the bad cops? And by the way, the more you talk about this and learn about this, if you do turn in a bad cop or forget about, the semantics here, if you see your partner do something illegal, something terrible, and you turn him or her in, the what I've heard is that you will be minimized to the point that you will be basically drummed off out of the department.
Yeah, you're going to want, and so that's not my experience, but because I'm not a baby, I know that my experience is not universal. I'm a very, very, very pro-union person. I believe that the union created the middle class, or at least a sustainable middle class. It provided an access out of poverty. It guaranteed safety and rights. I mean, I am a hardcore liberal person. Well, actually, I'm not actually that liberal, but for unions, I am. I love unions. I do not like police unions. I'm not in one. This is in the South. This is the South. We don't have those kind of unions, and so I can be fired from it, and my colleagues are fired. You lie, you're fired. You get a couple of complaints, you're fired. It happens all the time.
Cops get fired all the time?
All the time. All the time. I mean, in our department, all the time. If you do, I mean, I'm not talking about killing somebody. If you lie, you're fired. If you have a pattern of complaints by, people, you're going to be fired. I mean, it might take a while, but we're not a union. And so while I would love to have better pay and benefits and all that stuff, you know what? I'll take that crap, because what it does is we don't tolerate that, because one, we'll be fired. And two, I never try to argue with people on Twitter. They're like, why don't you say anything about when, your colleagues do crime? Because I haven't seen it. My colleagues, I've been on 1,000 911 calls in the last 3.5 years. And I can remember 2 instances where colleagues, it wasn't illegal. It wasn't even against policy. It was just rude, which I guess is against policy in some way. But they were just rude. They barked at somebody, snapped at somebody, and they got called out about it. The person said, hey, I want to speak to your supervisor. And when they say that, we are required to get the supervisor, not ask why. You just get the supervisor. And we have body-worn cameras. And if your body-worn camera isn't working, you are required to say over the radio, my BWC is inoperable, before every call. You can't just say, after you do something bad or make a mistake, oh, yeah, shit, my camera didn't work.
Huh.
The policy is that camera, and it's not when you get out of the car, it's when you're dispatched, because stuff can happen en route.
Right.
And so I don't know any of the old ways. I wasn't a cop before body-worn cameras, and I love them because they protect me from bad accusations, and it's also a documentation of what I'm doing, and they should. And people film me all the time, and I say, you should film me. You should. I'm filming you right now too, but film me. I don't crowd me when I'm trying to help somebody, but stand for it. I don't care. Film me. Just don't put one of those stupid little kitty cat filters on me, which they do.
That's easy to do on your head.
But yeah, so I don't see that. And now I've had colleagues fired. I don't see that. I've never had a time where I had to say, hey, you're breaking. Now, I have told people to chill out, stuff like that. But that's just more like temper tantrum stuff, or just heat of the moment. But I haven't seen egregious police abuse. But I'm also very aware that my experience is kind of narrow. I worked for 1 or 2 shifts for the last couple of years, and we're a pretty good shift, and we don't see that. We don't do that. We wouldn't tolerate it. Other departments, I don't speak for them. I don't even speak for my own department. But I do know that and I feel confident that most of the people in my department, if they see something like, God, not even that, but like just, out of policy, they're going to say something because they don't want to get fired, because if you see it, you're on the hook. And so there's not this wall of silence. There's not a really thin blue line. But I do know it exists. And it's really obvious when you start seeing police unions with their, like the NYPD police sergeant union, whatever, his spokesman.
Yeah.
I mean, if I just tweeted out word for word what he said with my, under my account, I'd be fired.
Wow.
I would be fired. Yeah. I mean, that's incendiary. When you start calling public officials scumbags, when you start rooting for violence against your neighbors, and I want to talk about this neighbor concept in a second, but yeah, I would be fired. I mean, I understand you want to try to protect your members, but that's not the point of being a police officer. The union is supposed to help further the goal of good policing, not protect bad cops. And so I'm lucky that I'm not in the union, and I thought I'd never say that.
That's a fascinating point to hear someone make. The whole the being a supporter of organized labor when it comes to police unions, something different. Let's talk about the neighborhood aspect of it, and working with your neighbors and living in the place that you are also a member of the police department. Why is that important?
Because I can't overseas, especially on the war on terror, we commuted to work. We had our rotations, and then we plugged out. I didn't have to see the consequences of my results too much. Here, I live in East Savannah, and until recently, I had a marked patrol car. I park in my driveway. My precinct is, I don't work in this precinct, but I would if I needed to transfer. I just work, 6 blocks away. And so when I use the term neighbor, it literally means these are my neighbors. Savannah's a big, a couple 100,000 people, so I don't know everybody, but I know my neighbors. And but so I started calling them that because I hated when people called them civilians. It drove me crazy because I'm a civilian. And and so I always called them that. And I started doing it in my reports and started doing it over the radio, and very intentional. And I would tell people, look, if you call them your neighbor, I don't care what you believe. If you just say it enough, you're going to start changing your mindset. And that's what we're trying to get at, because, you're not putting your knee on the neck of a neighbor. I mean, you could, I guess, but it might make it hopefully slightly more harder to do. It's not more harder. Yeah. But the neighbor concept is because that's what they are. They're your neighbors. I don't care if they live next door or in the same city or from a different continent. They're your neighbors. You are responsible for them. Right. You are, and I don't mean in this robotic. The police training teaches you to be polite.
It's a them versus us concept, it sounds like. And if it's a civilian, if you're using that word, and if you're talking about, the war and you're the punisher and all that, it's them versus us, as opposed to it's all of us. We're all neighbors. Yes. We all live in this community, and I'm the police officer, and you're the dentist, and you're the teacher, and you're the stay-at-home dad. I mean, you're all neighbors. Yeah,
and I need to get better at being gracious when people say, like, thank you for your service or whatever. No one ever thanked me in the agency because they didn't really know about it. Right. If they thanked me for my service, then I was like, oh shit, my cover's blown. But here, my name's right there. Right. And so, but I get like all queasy about it because while I understand it's well intended, we all serve. The person who works at the grocery store works harder than me, doesn't get free coffee. And has a lot of the risk. Yes, policing is dangerous, but so, a lot of things. And we can make it less so by decreasing the neighborhood tension. And so I'm relentless about it. Everybody's my neighbor. Sometimes I even say, hi, neighbor, what's your name? Because that's what we're supposed to do. Right. And it works, because if you communicate with them and understand that, you're not going to solve anything in one motion. You're not going to have. I had a really good 911 call today, and I fixed it. I ended crime. Crime is done. No, I mean there right. are just. I mean, there's a lot of things have gone wrong before I show up.
It seems like our friend Ali Soufan has always talked about this in terms of interrogating suspects, and in terms of trust. It seems like building trust in your community. Building trust with the people that you're asking questions to will get you to where you want to be to solve the crime, to solve the problem. But you're not going to be able to have trust if people look at you as the enemy.
Yes, and there's actually even a one other step that we don't, because a lot of people, we want to earn their trust. And, and most cops, they're good. I get it. But the problem, the bad cops, the damage they do is life and death. It's generational. It's just it way outweighs what we're trying to do. But so it's good cops know they try to win people's trust, but they don't take it the next step. And the next step is something that people look at me and I said, you need to trust them. That's the step. That the trick is there is no goddamn trick, and that for someone to trust you, you have got to trust them. And that means give them the benefit of the doubt. Stop running people with their databases every single time you talk to them. I spend so much time on night shift just telling people to turn their lights on. Because unlike in Europe where your car's lights are on, people, they're in light parking lots, they have their autos on, they leave and their lights aren't on. And they don't kick on. And so that's an automatic, pull over and then let's see what I can get out of this. That's the pretext to trying to get them. They might have a warrant, which is important. I mean, it is important to get people with warrants. or we can see what else we can get. And that's policing. I get it. But also you could just pull up and roll your window down and say, hey man, turn your damn lights on, and then drive away. And I do that a lot.
Why do you want some of these lights on?
Oh, because it's, dark driving. They're driving. Literally,
their headlights.
Their car. Yeah, their headlights.
I'm sorry.
It's like they were literally driving. Yeah, that's okay. They're driving without lights. It's pitch black. They leave a lighted parking lot or lit parking lot, and they just don't know. And so that is an excuse to do a traffic stop. Well, it's not an excuse. It's a justification to do a traffic stop.
I understand that.
And it's also, and it's a safety reason. You want their lights on. So you can pull them over, do a traffic stop, or you could pull over next to them, roll your window down and say, hey man, turn your lights on. And then do that. Maybe make a stop later on about that. We're not robots. We have discretion, and I think we need to use it.
Before I let you go, and you've been really generous, and I just fucking love talking to you, man. It's fascinating to hear your perspective.
The last time I talked to you, I was pacing. Oh, it was a while ago because I was at Ollie's house.
Right. Yeah, I do remember that.
I was standing in his driveway, up and down. That's got to be 4 years ago, maybe.
His driveway. Very nice driveway. But before I just want to ask you about how you're thinking about the protests and the way that police are handling the protesters. You understand why it's a tough job for the police officer. I think everybody can understand that. But it's not hard to also imagine why people are out in the streets and why they're protesting. But how do you see the role and responsibility? And have you ever been in that position of crowd control or protest control as a member of law enforcement?
I have been in many riots where you have 20 people because you're arresting a family member. And then you literally have to start keeping people away. And so that's a baby experience. That's terrifying. I mean, you get 20 people and there's 3 cops and they're coming off the porch and they're very angry. And they're in your face screaming. And it's, you could arrest them because they're being disorderly, but if you did, you're going to get into a shootout. I mean, so it's terrifying. And so I'm very sympathetic with police officers that are dealing with this, but we need to do a better job of understanding what loud protest and even uncomfortable cops need to. The best thing that I've ever learned is I need to get more comfortable being uncomfortable. It's okay that someone's yelling right next to me. And so the cops, you can see it. Camden did it. Flint did it. A couple other places. And now, granted, some of this falls onto the protesters because they have to, a protest is not a riot. Now, I don't care. Protests can get really, really loud and really disorderly and stuff like that, but that's not a riot. Riot is when they start breaking things, but more importantly, burning things and trying to hurt cops and trying to hurt people. We need to clearly understand that. Well, it's the exact same thing. The war on terror, we're looking for 0.1% in a population, and we treat everyone like shit.
Right.
War on crime, we do the exact same thing. And now in protest, we do the exact same thing. Everybody's a rioter. But that's not true. Most of these people are protesting, and they have a reason to protest. And the better the cops can just not show overwhelming force, and it's like irresistible. It's the siren song of police officers is to show that dominating. Because if we don't, they're gonna burn everything down. Well, you know what? Some people will, yes, and you can deal with them. But most people aren't monsters. Most people are just really, really upset, and they have a reason to be upset. So I've been really interested. I watched what the coverage is, and I actually watched the videos, and you can see the tactics of them trying to corral. And so I understand the crowd control. I did a lot of that with federal stuff. And but the more successful places are the ones where they expand what a protest is while making sure that it's not a riot. It's okay that people are blocking traffic. I'm sorry, it's inconvenient. It sucks. And is it illegal? Yeah, it's illegal. But that's how this is going to change. You might have to break some traffic laws. That doesn't excuse burning things. But you know what? Yeah, it's okay. They're blocking the street. They're screaming. I get it. They should be screaming. And you should wonder why so many people are screaming. They're not paid demonstrators. They're your neighbors. And again, that whole concept comes back to, man, my neighbors are really, really upset.
Right.
And so I can dress like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle with all my riot gear, which, when it turns into a riot, you're going to want, but there's a universe of possibility before it does that.
Right. Oh, man, so good talking to you, Patrick. So good catching up with you, and I really appreciate you joining me today. I can't thank you enough, and I look forward to doing it again.
Oh, no problem, man. Anytime.
So here's the cool thing. I'll brag a little bit because I think it brings some value to the show. And some of you know this because you know me well, and some of you might assume it. But after that interview is over, Patrick said to me, the only show I said yes to was yours and NPR, and I've got a piece coming out in Washington Post. Point being, he's getting a lot of requests to do a lot of different radio shows, and especially TV shows and podcasts. But he said yes to your pal, Pete, because years ago I created a good relationship with him and so many others over the years. And that's what you're paying for. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for the access to these guests that I get on the show. Certainly, I've gotten a couple of no's. I have. I'm not going to lie. Michael Pollan recently turned down an interview with me, which is pretty disappointed. I'll stay on top of him, but usually people say yes. A lot of these people I have great relationships with, as I do so many of the folks that listen to the show on a regular, hopefully daily basis, because that's what I'm putting it out. So that's the value. So that's why you get a paid subscription, because the people I know and the conversations I have, I want to share them with you so that we can all learn and grow together. How's that sound? That's really the tag. That's really what I'm trying to do here. And speaking of listeners, Cornell Woolrich is a longtime listener. He started listening to me, I guess he said during this interview, like 10 years ago. And he would call the show. He's always a great caller. I always love to see his name on the board. After the show ended, we started talking on the phone and getting to know each other better. And he's contributed to the show a number of different ways. I really like him. He's an honest, thoughtful, intelligent, very passionate, motivated guy. And he's really positive. He's just a good guy, and I like him a lot. And we had a great conversation that came out of his Facebook post that he put up. Very political, very passionate about his political views, and I have a great respect for them. I think he's got a lot of original ideas, and he just made this honest, heartfelt 15-minute post, and I want to share that with you. I was pretty much hanging on his every word. All of his thoughts here were relevant and important to me, and I think white folks especially need to hear black guys and men and women talking about the issues the way they see them as honestly as they can. We need to try to listen, to try to understand, to try to be better. And Cornell does a great job of that in this Facebook post. So this is 15 minutes of Cornell. And then me and Cornell had a long conversation, and we had some really good laughs at the end. Ends on a very big laugh. And I love it. I love talking to him. I love getting to know him. And I think you will too. If you want to be a guest on the show because you have something to say, it is entirely possible. I would love to hear from you. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, here is Cornell Woolrich's Facebook post. You can follow him on Twitter at RenaissanceXM, and you can add him on Facebook as well. Both of those links are in the show notes for this podcast. Here it is right now, Cornell's Facebook post, and following that, our conversation.
Hey, y'all. I know I've been speaking out a lot on Facebook with writing, and I hadn't actually posted a video in, I guess, a couple weeks, but I feel like the stuff I have to say cannot really be said well over letters and words on a Facebook post. So I'm saying it this way. I am a privileged black man in America. And this is what a privileged black man in America looks like. I have 2.5 degrees. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. I have been working in one way, shape, or form since I was a sophomore in high school. I make mid-5 figures in my job. I am 41, soon to be 42. I was making mid-5 figures, 13 years ago. In those 13 years, I got 1.5 degrees. I'm still making mid 5 figures. I live in a duplex with a yard, which some of you all have seen or seen part of. I have a garage, which I'm in right now. And I've never been shot. I've never been arrested. I've never been beaten by cops. I've never been physically harassed by cops. And that's what it looks like to be a privileged black man in this country. So when I see white people talking about how awful all the looting and the rioting and the things like that are, it's a lot of ignorance. And it's a lot of ignorance because while, yes, on their face, destruction, burning, harming, people and businesses that really haven't done anything to you is not good. I get that. I also get that when you don't understand where it's coming from and you simply choose to denounce how horrible it is without understanding, you're part of the problem. You may not think you are, you may not want to be, and you are. Because when you have the power to just denounce things, to just say how bad and awful they are, without understanding them, that's a problem. And that's one of these small ways that white people in this country add to this problem. Because at the same time, I see white people denouncing and talking about how horrible all the protesting and violence and the looting is. I don't see those same white people talking about the fact that gas is being used at so many of these protests. And this is the same gas that is actually prohibited by international law for war. We've got the President of the United States using this gas to clear out an area so that he can hold a Bible in front of a church that he's never visited and have a photo op and look like he is some kind of moral entity that he has not and never will be. The man was asked what his favorite Bible verse was. In 2015, he couldn't give one. He just said he liked certain parts, and it's because he doesn't know it. Haven't seen one white evangelical, not one white person of the cloth come out and speak out against this. He's using your religion. He's using your holy text, your holy book, to look like something that you know he isn't. And I don't see people speaking out against that. I've got all kinds of white friends, white family who love God and are for God and are all about that. Haven't heard really any of them speak out against Trump and what he did yesterday and holding a Bible in front of a church without its permission for a photo op, while at the same time gassing peaceful protesters so that he can make sure to have that photo op. I did not bring up all of the things about me in the beginning for a woe is Cornell moment, because that's not really what I'm about. I brought that up so you understand that in this country, to be a privileged black man is to have 2.5 degrees, making mid 5 figures in a job with 20-something years of work experience and not be harassed, not be put in jail. Like, that's what it looks like to be a privileged black man in this country. So you might understand where the anger and the frustration and the hopelessness that comes out of much of the violence and the looting and all of that you see. Because to speak on it without having any idea of where it comes from is ignorant, and we don't need any more ignorance. We don't need any more of it in our country at all. We need a lot less ignorance. I've got white friends who have reached out to me, and I appreciate every single one of you all that have done so. And I continue to reach out to me asking, Cornell, what can I do? How can I be a part of this? Where is my place in all of this? And there are too many ways to name what you can do to be a part of things being better. And I'm gonna say a few just off the top of my head. And they're not going to be easy. They're going to be really subtle, and they're going to be really difficult. And that's the work, is what I'm about to say to you all. If you're a white person who wants to be an ally, you need to question yourself. You need to question what you're saying. You need to question what you're thinking. You need to question your assumptions when it comes to things that involve black people in this country. Because I can guarantee you probably half of the assumptions you have, good or bad, are wrong. If you have children, and even if you don't have children, you need to find ways to be around more black people. Because I can tell you right now, for a number of my white friends, I am one of the only black friends they have. And I am not all black people. By any stretch of the imagination, I am not all black people. I do not speak for all black people. I do not look like all black people. I do not act like all black people. So you've got to expose yourself to people who don't look or think like you, so that you can just understand, not so you can be made, to think like them, but so you can understand where they're coming from. Because a lot of the issues we have going on right now are because people don't understand where other folks are coming from. And it just so happens that when white people don't understand where black people are coming from, black people die. There's any number of white friends I have that I don't understand parts about their life. But that misunderstanding isn't going to lead to them dying. Them not understanding me, them not understanding other black people that they know, and really what their life is like, that could lead to that black friend or that black coworker dying. So surround yourself with people with experiences that you don't know, so you can have a broader understanding of the world and not be so quick to denounce things that you don't fully understand. Also, and this is probably one of the more difficult things that white people can do to be allies, and it's really important, speak out, and don't just speak out against racism to strangers. Speak out to people that you know and that you love, your parents, your siblings, your cousins, your relatives, your best friend. Because I can guarantee you, if you were to stop and really look, there's probably some of that going on that you've just overlooked, or maybe you felt a certain way about it and you just haven't said anything because you don't want to make things uncomfortable at like a dinner or at some kind of party or at some kind of holiday gathering. We need a lot more uncomfortable conversations. We need to get a lot more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that starts with white people, because y'all have been comfortable for a really long time. A really, really long time. You get to ignore things that you don't like to look at. I've got friends who, I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter, I don't do those things. It's just too ugly. I get that. It is ugly. I talk about it every day. I'm on it every day. I get it. It's really ugly. And a lot of us don't get to put that ugliness down. We don't get to say, you know what, I'm not going to look at that ugliness that's happening to other people because it's happening to us. We live that ugliness in one way, shape, or form every day. We don't get to put it down. So You need to stop and consider every time you decide I'm going to look away from that thing over there that's too ugly. You need to stop and consider, okay, what am I missing? What is it that I'm missing that might save somebody I care about's life? That might make this world a little bit better, even if it's hard to see. What am I missing? Because I can guarantee you, if you're turning away from all those ugly things, you're missing a lot. And like I said before, when white people don't understand things and when they miss things, black people have a higher chance of dying. So it's literally life and death for us when you choose to look away and choose to not understand what you don't know. Also, something that white people can do to be an ally: listen to black people. Listen before you speak. It doesn't mean you don't have anything to say. It doesn't mean you don't have anything to contribute, because you do. And you don't know everything. In fact, there's a lot here you don't know. So listen first before you speak. And then find a way to be a part of things that are going on. You don't have to create something new. Take the time to find out what's going on around you and be a part of that. And if that's not your thing, and I get it's not your thing, it's not everybody's thing to be out there and to be a part of, public initiatives and all that, do it where you work. Do it where you live. Help people question their assumptions. Bring perspectives into maybe your mostly white business that most of the people in your business aren't thinking about, that might affect people of color and black people. My partner is in a doctoral program, and they're not really the go out and march kind of person, and I get that, and they've been struggling with, okay, what can I do to help, because they're white? Like, how can I be a part of this, or should I just be quiet? And they asked a question during one of their sessions in a doctoral program. They asked a question to a guy that's working with the VA, and that question forced that person to really check their assumptions about really how hard they were working to change culture in their organization. And I don't know what good that's going to do, but it could do a lot of good. And at the very least, other people in that conversation got to hear my partner ask that question. Who knows what that's going to do? And that's how they're able to be a part of this. There are so many ways for white people to be a part of this that don't include going to protests and marching and all that. It includes speaking out and being a voice for actual change right where you are, where you work, in your friend groups, all those places. If more of you all do that, if it's only that, it's going to make all the difference in the world. So, get to be around more black people. Stop being so quick to speak and listen to black people. Join things that other black people around you have already started and be an advocate with those things. Call out ignorance, racial ignorance, where you are and among your family and among your friends. And do what you can to be a voice that questions those white assumptions where you work and where you live. If you do any of those things, let alone all of them, you will make all the difference in the world, and you will be an ally. So please do those things. And don't be so quick to judge things that you likely don't understand. Ask questions. Seek to understand before you judge. That's really it. And I don't think it's a huge ask. It's a difficult ask, but it's not a huge ask. That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm telling all of my white friends who want to be allies. These are things you can do to be an ally, to really be an ally. Thank y'all for listening. As I have told my niece, who's white and is young and is so awesome and is out there doing it, be wise, be safe. And I love y'all. All right. Bye.
bottle.
Oh yeah, I've been rocking with that for years.
Love it. Okay, so I've just watched your Facebook post, and I have questions. I want to continue the conversation that you began there. Make it two-sided. Not two-sided, but make it a conversation, because that was quite a soliloquy, my friend, and couldn't have been easy. And so my first question to you is, I mean, I don't know who your Facebook friends are, who your Facebook network is, but oh boy. Hey, I'm in an interview. All right, you have to wait like 30 minutes. Bye.
Kid or wife?
That was kid. I forgot to turn my phone on.
So I'm like, that sounds like a conversation with the kid. I thought, I'm like, with a partner, it's like, listen, a lot
way
more
different.
Hey,
way different. That would have been, that would have been way different. Yes.
I'm like, that
I would have been like, excuse me, Your Honor, I am conducting an interview at this moment.
With your blessing, I have an interview that I like.
With your blessing, if I would like to disconnect this phone call.
Right.
All right, let me start over.
No problem.
Okay, Cornell, I've just watched your Facebook video and post, and it was heart-wrenching and thought-provoking and inspiring. And my first question to you is, how has the response been to it? What have people said?
I've actually been really surprised about the response. I was just really moved to share what I was thinking and really respond to a lot of the different feedback and stuff that I've been reading and noticing on social media. And, I'm a pretty good writer. Like I write, I write a lot. I've been writing all my life and I love it. And there are just some things that do not lend themselves to writing. And so I realized that's where I was. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do a video. And I've been really surprised at the response. I knew some people would be like surprised, like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this was your experience and things like that. But I've been surprised at how much it's actually been shared. Like, I thought it would be more just people that knew me that would respond, which, is generally how it happens with Facebook Live and like videos. But I've been really surprised that my friends who wanted to share it, and then their friends like, oh, hey, can I share this? And I was like, yeah, that's fine, please. It's just, I made this public to be able to share, so go right on ahead.
So who's in your Facebook network? Like what kinds of people are there? What kinds of things do they say? I mean, I feel like we've got our childhood friends, we've got maybe college friends or other job friends, and then, your neighbors, your family. Is that your typical?
I've got folks from all over. I mean, I grew up in the South. I went to school for both undergrad and graduate school in the North. So I've got that network. I've got people that I've met, politically with campaigns I've run, people I work with, family, friends of friends. So it's, I've got a pretty broad network. I mean, not just in this country, but also,
oh, look at you. Was there any kind of pushback, criticism, or was it mostly people like, thanks for doing this, appreciate it, I learned a lot type of thing?
It's I would say it's been mostly, mostly people either saying thanks or like, wow, like I really needed to hear that. And, just thanks for sharing. So most of the feedback has been pretty positive. I'm waiting for that backlash, but I also think that when it comes to stuff like that on Facebook, you're not as likely to get that kind of pushback, whereas on like Twitter, where, you are followed and connected to people who you may never, ever meet. There's a lot less of a consideration or care. Oh, okay, I'm going to say what I'm going to say to you because I'm not going to meet you. So, I'll just. Well,
I've got nothing but pushback for you. And I've even got more people. Come on in, folks. Come on in. A lot of people want to talk to you. I was outraged by a number of the things that you said. I was first really, I think, sad to hear about the fact that your salary hasn't gone up over these 10 years. And it, unfortunately it corresponds with a lot of different, lack of wage stagnation and wealth inequality and so on. But when you say you've got a number of degrees, several degrees, and it's stayed around the same, it's easy to look at them and be like, well, what are you doing wrong, Cornell? Like, what's up with your network? Did you get fired? Do you got a bad reputation? All kinds of different things that people would never ask you, but I will because I love you.
No worries. Go ahead. So
what do you attribute that to?
It's hard because I don't do the research myself, but there is quite a bit of research that like shows on average a place that a Black person in this country grows up. So like what class they grow up in, when they become adult, more often than not, they will go down a class. So if somebody grew up middle class, like I did, I grew up middle class. I'd say I grew up, like middle class, like right there in the middle. Now I would put myself probably in lower middle class, which is still like, I'm better than a whole lot of people in the country. So this isn't like, oh man, I'm just making it. And yeah, like it doesn't matter that I have 2.5 degrees. I still find myself living in at a status lower than how I grew up and my parents. Meanwhile, and I didn't say this in the video because I didn't want it to come about this. I'm sure had I actually included this, there probably would have been more pushback. But like I have friends, like I've got somebody that I love like a brother. He is my brother, doesn't have a college degree at all. It's not because he's not intelligent enough for me. He's one of the more brilliant people I know. He is very intelligent and he has no formal education outside of high school. He now is in a job with a very prominent company, a very prominent tech company, at a level where he can't tell me what he's doing because like the stuff he's doing is that secret and is that like hush hush. And he's making a very good salary. Now, that being said, I don't at all have any problem with the fact he is because he busts his ass and he deserves all that he's gotten. And when you compare those two situations, I have 2.5 degrees. He has a high school education. He's making, if not 6 figures, really high 5 figures. I would guess he's probably closer to 6. And I'm pretty much where I've been, where I peaked at like, in 2008. And here it is 2020, and I got 1.5 degrees since then. It really kind of tells the story that, like I was saying, that research and studies have shown that, regardless of education, on average, a Black person will find themselves living at at least a half level, if not a full level class lower than maybe how they lived when they grew up in this country due to any number.
Yeah, and there's a lot of factors, and I talk about them with experts on the show all the time, as you know. But it also, I just want to say, it sounds like what you're saying is, listen, I'm not faulting my friend. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve what he's got. What I am saying is, I deserve it too, or I deserve it more. He should be able to have his piece of the pie. He earned it for whatever reason. But so did I, and technically, I've got way more of an education, but it's not necessarily about a lot of those things, as we know, and so we can attribute that to a number of things. But let me move on to my next question here on the video, in reference to what you said. I thought the most kind of original thing I'd heard. I hadn't heard this. This is why even people who try hard and even for a living are talking about these issues can always learn a lot if they're not living them, which is the social media point you made. I love that point. I can't. It's too much. It's too depressing. Everybody's angry. I have to turn it off. And we've all heard that. But your point was, absolutely. I can't.
Yeah.
I have to live it. I can tweet about it. I can talk about it on the podcast and go out to my suburban garden and not have to worry about a lot of the same issues that you have to worry about, frankly, in your suburban garden. So, I don't know what my question is. I just wanted to say that I thought that was a really good point. And if there's any way you wanted to expand on that,
how I would expand on it is that, I talk about social media as a way that people, connect, but then also have the option to disconnect. Some people have the option to disconnect, but it's not just social media. It is, events. It's literally life. Because social media is the most, I'd say the most ubiquitous thing that we all kind of have in common that we engage with. And I would say that privilege really does show up in how you get to choose what kind of life experience you have. So like, you know what? There's some maybe not desirable things going on in that part of the neighborhood. So guess what? I'm not going to go over there. However, if you are Black in that city, there's a decent chance you either live there or maybe you go there to get your hair cut, or you have people you know over there. And so you're going to go over there, or you're going to cut off part of your life. And so social media is really an example of the privilege that, white people in this case, I was talking about the video, have, and they take it for granted. They don't realize that, hey, they get to choose, hey, I'm not going to engage with this part of life that's ugly. Whatever form it is, whether it be social media or TV or, where I go hang out in my city or my neighborhood, I'm not going to be part of that because I don't want to have to face that. Life's hard. I got all this stuff going on. I don't want to have to deal with that. So I'm not going to. And
how often?
Those of us who are, we don't get to say, you know what? I'm not going to be Black.
Right.
I don't fucking want to be Black today, so I'm not going to do it. Like that, just we don't get that option.
What do you think? What do you hear when you hear the phrase? I don't think you should go to that part of the town.
I mean, what I hear is that that person's probably making a decision based on limited understanding of that part of town, and they probably shouldn't go to that part of town. And I say that because if you're scared, if you don't know anything about that part of town, you go over there and you start acting really stupid. Yeah, the things that happen to people, the bad things that happen to people that you hear about will likely happen to you because you don't know how to interact with that place without doing or saying something stupid that will get you hurt. So, I hear that, I'm like, yeah, you probably, you might learn some really cool things there. And if you're ignorant, you might not learn some cool things there and get hurt.
I am ignorant to other communities and ethnicities, from their foods to their music to their cultures to their proclivities toward the things that might offend them. I am ignorant. But you're also telling me in the video that I should be spending more time and bringing my family to spend more time with people of color, with people from other backgrounds and cultures. How do I become less ignorant if I'm afraid to go to that part of town, to go to that church, to go to that community, school, etc.?
Well, what I would say is that in that case, and this is where kind of, I don't want to call it pre-work, but it's maybe it's preparation. And this is where preparation is really important, because if you say, let's say you live in a suburban neighborhood and, you do what everybody else in suburban neighborhoods do, and, you're white and most of that group is white, there are likely some opportunities in your neighborhood somewhere or somewhere close to your neighborhood where you might have an opportunity to interact with people who are not solely white. So do that, step out a little bit, get to know them. And from that interaction, there's a decent chance that the people, the people who don't look and live like you, or don't look and act like you, have your experience, that they are going to have some connection to other parts of the city you don't have. So then, and just in conversation, where you're talking about, hey, what are you doing this weekend? They say, oh, we're going to the a multicultural festival over, in such and such. Have you ever been? No, I've never been, but I've really been interested in going. You know what? You should come with us. And it's like, okay, hey, let's go do that. So that if you don't really know anything about that part of the neighborhood, you want to be able to connect and engage with somebody that does, and that can help you kind of navigate that and understand, hey, this is weird, and that will actually support you, because you want to find people, and this is why exposing yourself to different types of folks who don't live or look like you is important, because you want to find people who are happy, or at least experience in helping people get to know things that they don't know. Because just deciding, hey, I'm gonna go to that neighborhood, I'm just gonna figure it out. Some people can do that, and that's awesome. Not everybody can just roll up into a neighborhood they don't know and just kind of figure their way out of it, or figure their way into it. So you got to be honest about who you are and where your strings lie and where they don't lie. If you're a really personable person, or a personable white person, you generally kind of get along with most folks. Even if you don't know people in that neighborhood, you're going to be able to find some way to connect, and it'll be awkward, and then you figure it out. But if you aren't personable, then you got to know, okay, I'm really weird when I don't know people and know how they work. So I need to find somebody that can help me bridge that gap so that I can do that, because I want to, but you don't want to do it in a way that's going to make things worse for you and make it so that you're actually more frightened to go out and explore more.
Do you think Black folks should go to Renaissance festivals more?
Here's what I
just made up. Maybe Black people go to Renaissance festivals and love them. Maybe there's a high attendance around the world. I just made that up because you said multicultural festival, and it just made me think of a festival of people.
Well, here's what's funny.
Huzzah!
My niece, who is mixed, so maybe this has something to do with it. My niece actually loves Renaissance festivals, and I make fun of them all the time. I was like, every time they tell me, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get my costume," and I was like, "Nerd alert!" Yeah. And you know what? Like they go. And
I feel like I've been a couple times, but I feel like there wasn't a lot of diversity. I feel like the diversity was in the cast. It was just like the the Black Knight and the White Knight. So I'm kidding about Renaissance festivals, but I do want to know how they break down attendance ethnic wise. So there was another thing when you talked about, I thought it was really eloquent when you talked in that video about the looting or the rioting, the damage, the violence, the vandalism, specifically the vandalism against, the property damage. And for yesterday, I talked to one woman who said in her Black Chicago neighborhood that a lot of, in her opinion, Black people were vandalizing Black businesses. I also saw the same was the case in Birmingham, where my friend, Roy Wood Jr. from The Daily Show, really funny comedian, was down in Birmingham, where he's from, repairing Black businesses. And I don't know if the perception there was that the damage was created by Black people as well. But in the scenario where there is damage against Black businesses from Black people, what do you think about that? Because when you talked earlier about your career and we talked about inequities there, it's like you work so hard to build a business, and then someone from your own community maybe came and destroyed your business one night over it. Like, that's a complicated thing, but I have thoughts on it, but I'd rather hear yours.
So my thoughts are this: when you have rage, and we're talking years and years of rage, and not being understood and not being able to have access to this American dream that is all around you, and you see advertised that, you hear about it, and it's just not there for you, along with the fact that you're not treated like a human being, you're treated like something to be afraid of and all of that. When you've got years of that pent up and something happens where whatever you've been doing to either kind of release it or hold it in just lets the whole thing out, you don't care. You aren't thinking about, oh, hey, I shouldn't destroy this. You are just like, I got to get this out. And you know what? I can't control my life. I can't do all the things that so many other people can do. But you know what? I can destroy this. I can punch through this window. I can affect this thing over here. And yes, I would say that, more often than not, if you've got like people from a Black neighborhood rioting, that more often than not, you will see, businesses that are Black not get as destroyed. Like, for instance, in the DC riots, I believe this was like after MLK was assassinated. One of my favorite places in DC, and it's an institution, Ben's Chili Bowl. It was on that street where that happened. Ben's Chili Bowl didn't get destroyed. And so, there is a certain level. It depends on where you are, but there are different levels of rage and of outlet and of expression. And if you're at that high level, you're not caring. You are just trying to have some kind of control and trying to get this stuff you've been holding inside of you for so long out. And whatever's closest, that's what's going to happen. And if you're just really angry and you're like, okay, I've got to get this, I need to express this, but you're not just like in a rage, then yeah, you may be, oh, no, hey, we're not destroying that. Like, we can If we need to let loose and just get this out, that's fine. But we know that person. We've gone to that place. We're not going to destroy that, because this is to try to act on those forces who have acted on us. And that's not one of those. So we're not going to do it. I think it really depends on what level a person is at or a group is at as far as its rage, whether or not it's really conscious about what it's doing, or whether or not it is, at a point where it just needs to, almost like kind of Hulk smash and just destroy whatever is near.
I understand that. I've often wondered how there's not more just general black rage on a daily basis. Like, I've never felt it. Like, I don't think I've felt that, like walking down the street or an interaction. But I've sometimes wondered, like, I wouldn't blame people if they just went around being pretty mad because of the daily, major aggressions and transgressions, much less microaggressions and indignities. You can kind of.
Well, and here's the thing that only I think people who really get into like the biology and physiology of this, when those energetics, that anger, that disappointment, that depression, all that stuff, when you hold it in, it moves within the body, and it's got to go somewhere. So if you can't get it out, it becomes cancer. It becomes diabetes. It becomes things that tear your body down.
Yeah, that's a great.
It comes out one way. It comes out one way.
Right. If you don't have people to talk to in therapy and outlets, or just life skills to deal with all kinds of inner conflict, then it comes out, and that's not racial or sexist. That's psychology, and we're specifically talking as it relates to race. But I also your video, it seemed like you didn't name one specific indignity or issue, and I think that when we think about the 21st century civil rights movement, if we want to call it Black Lives Matter when it comes to race, we can talk about sexual orientation and feminism and so on. But we're talking about race. You're talking about race and racism. Mm-hmm. I think that you touched on a lot of things there, minor indignities and small things that you have to deal with on a daily basis, longer term things that are not right. And obviously you offered a lot of solutions, but this is systemic and it's cultural, is what I felt like you were saying. There's a lot of change that needs to happen in terms of laws and in terms of human rights, but there's also a lot of change that needs to happen in terms of opportunity and education. And finally, there's a lot I felt like that needs to change in terms of white people, especially understanding what you were saying, your experience. And that's, I don't know, you offer ideas, but that's something that it's hard to teach. And I think the best thing you said is the hardest thing to do, which is hang out with black people. It's hard to do, actually.
Well, and here's the.
I want to explain myself what I mean by that. Like, we're so segregated, self-segregated. It's almost like patronizing. But like, could your black family come to my house and be around my kids? And you can't. By the way, I try to talk to the girls about having more friends with more backgrounds, and they have really interesting, thoughtful reasons as to why that's not the case in their some very diverse school. But I don't want to get into my own experience as much. I mean, I've got a lot of people in my life from a lot of different backgrounds, whatever. But it's true that it's hard. I'm saying that it's hard for people to create the situations. You might be really close with someone at work or school, a white person, a black person. But at what point do you invite any person from work or school to your house when you have a family? So I'm done. I just wanted to be more specific.
Well, I mean, and it is challenging, and it is for white people in general. And this goes into just the general white experience of living in this country that we touched on earlier. Is that, I mean, one of the things I said in my video that I imagine, in fact, I know one of my friends, actually kind of called herself out about it. I said, I am, for a number of my white friends, like the only real black friend they have. And
I bet you're that because your partner's white.
Right.
Because her network is probably, I'm just making assumptions, probably mostly white because that's just how things are. No, she's got a mixed, but are you a lot of people's only black friend?
I would.
I mean, how could you know?
If,
I guess.
Well, no, and what I say, and that's why I say real friend. I'm not saying I'm the only black person.
Right? No, but come to my house, eat in my home, friend. Go in my pool,
exactly,
friend.
Right, and that comes from if you were to, if people were not, I know
go in my pool. What kind of
somebody were to actually survey like 500,000 white people in this country and said, hey, how many black people do you engage with like on a daily basis? And then ask, okay, how many black people do you invite to your home, or do you go to their home? If you were to ask them, a lot of them would like, they'd be really low on that scale. And it wouldn't necessarily be because, oh, I don't want to be around black people. It's more because of how things, as you already said, are so segregated. And if you don't stop and say, hey, you know what? I only hang out with white people. Like a lot of white people don't even think about that until someone says, hey, how come you don't have any black friends? They're like, oh, well, oh my God, I don't actually have any black friends. Like they don't stop and think about it until someone calls them out. And they're like, oh crap, I've lived most of my life not really being around black people, maybe working with them, but not actually knowing anything about their life. And wow, what does that, like, how has that colored my understanding of the world? And the thing is, our country does not force white people to say, hey, stop, check what you have created or what kind of life you created for yourself. And is this really the life you want? It says, hey, you're good. As long as you don't say anything bad to people and you don't physically hurt people, you know, when you say the right things, you're okay. And it's like, well, maybe we need to shift what it means to actually have, like, what it means to have a good life, what it means to be like a good citizen. It's like, hey, maybe you need to actually force it some, and it's awkward. I get that. And if you want to better understand what's going on with black people, like you said, you've got to be around and actually really like connect, not just, oh, let's go have a drink after work. Because yeah, maybe you'll shoot the shit or whatever for like.
Although don't discount that a drink after work with a person can really create a strong connection.
No.
There should be a lot more of that. I feel like the only time you see white people and black people drinking is in a beer commercial. Like, come on, these guys are never hanging out with each other watching the game. I'm sorry.
But my point is, when it's like, okay, a drink like after work with work people, there is generally like that culture that is at work that generally
right. You still got the tie on. You still got the HR violet. Yeah, all that. Yeah,
exactly. And so my point is that, hey, yeah, it is going to have to be more forced. And that's part of what makes it so hard. So I was saying, hey, this stuff is simple, but it's not easy. It's not complicated. It's just, okay, these are things I can do, and they're going to be hard to do because I'm really going to have to be uncomfortable and say, hey, I don't have many black friends. Can you and I hang out?
You know what I think is the most natural divider of black and white people, or black and Asian people, or white and Asian people, whatever, is just cultural stuff. It's like, I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine who lives in Atlanta, about this thing he throws, this fundraiser he throws every year. He's a black guy, and it is he always invites me, and I'm like, I don't like that music, I'm not coming. You know, I'm joking with him, but it's like, the point is, it's cultural stuff. It's like music and certain sports even, and food. It's not like, no offense, but I don't like that music is what a black person might say to a white person, although they're more used to it because they're living in a white world. But it's even more uncomfortable for the white person to be like, I don't know anything about R&B. I don't want to be that guy. And I don't like that food, or whatever it is. It's like, it's not overt racism, but it's like a kind of person who doesn't want to try something new.
Well, and that is, in that, I mean,
like, I got radicalized in college because I was forced to live with that guy, and he forced black things like into my life that I did not like.
Absolutely, and that's really the crux of the point, is that because even though like the demographics and stuff have been shifting in this country to minority majority for a while now, the white is still right when it comes to what sells, when it comes to what's on TV, when it comes to the messages we get every day around us. And so, yeah, an Asian person going to a white run fundraiser even if they are really into like their Asian culture and they're like, hey, they participate and they are proud of it, they still, because they are in this United States, they know enough about white culture to be able to be there and be like, okay, I can navigate this because guess what? I've been navigating this my whole life.
White people are more uncomfortable walking into minority events and gatherings than any minority is walking into any white event or gathering.
Right. I mean, and that's, again, that's really the crux. Is like, hey, that's how it's been. And so to shift that is going to take a lot of white people being like, all right, I don't like this music, but you know what? Maybe I can ignore the music and get to know these people and then not even notice, oh, yeah, there's this kind of music that I don't dig playing in the background because me and this person are like connecting with the fact that, oh, my God, you grew up in upstate New York. That's crazy. And now you're talking about that and you're not worried about the cultural things. I mean, they're going to be there, but it is that uncomfortability, like you're saying, that a typical white person like, oh, you know what, I'm going to feel uncomfortable.
I don't know. They're doing all these dances and they all are looking at me. I had a one experience one time. I mean, a lot of them, fortunate for me, I think, but I was at a black funeral, only white person in the church. And everybody started doing whatever kind of song that black people do in church at a funeral. Yeah. And they all knew it.
And you're just like,
Cornell, I'm telling you, it was so awkward because, as you know, also they didn't hide. Like white people will be like a little bit more kind of muted and they're staring at you. Like every black person there was like looking at me and laughing, and I mean laughing at me because yes, and I was like, and so finally. I just started laughing, and everybody was just laughing at the fact that I was like, I don't know the words to this song, but I'm gonna keep trying because my friend's dad died, and I wanted to be here. What am I?
But here's the thing. Even, I mean, in that moment, I can imagine.
Hilarious.
Oh my Lord, this is surreal. And just like we were saying before, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have been, and I'm still the only black face in a white place. And so that said, because I've grown up in this country, I mean, there's still some things, and I will joke with my coworkers, like I'll say like, like, no offense, that's some white shit. Like, it's okay. It doesn't mean I don't.
Do you have an example of that?
That is good. Oh,
or do you have any question? Or do you have any questions for me?
No, this was the thing. It was we were talking about like desserts and kind of stuff we like, and somebody was bringing up chessmen. I think it's like Pepperidge Farm chessmen, which are like
I know
cookies. Yeah. Right, and so I'm just like, I know about that because I've been around y'all, but understand that's
Pepperidge Farm Pepperidge Farm is a product that's clearly always been marketed to white people with that voiceover guy, that old Wilford Brimley. Pepperidge Farm cookies for white people.
Exactly. But here's
for British people.
Even with that, there are plenty of black people who like know about like the chocolate chunk cookies. There are some Pepperidge Farm cookies that are pretty ubiquitous, but the chessmen cookies, I'm like, this is a cookie that like nobody knows.
Where are you? White people. Where do you think we are racially on Grey Poupon? Is that?
I think culturally, people don't even know. Like you and I know about those commercials. Like I remember that commercial. It was the silliest shit ever. But I think there are people on average.
Do you think black people? Do you think this is a trope, or do you think black people actually have more appreciation for hot sauce than white people? And what's that all about?
Oh no, that is not a trope. I would say on average, absolutely. I would say on average, black people have they have a greater appreciation for seasoned food, for like, hey, I want to experience my
more
food.
Flavor in general, than the Irish and the a lot of the Eastern European. Yeah, that's true.
Potatoes and like boiling.
I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that about Italians. I wouldn't say it about the Greek, but
absolutely.
Yeah. Before we wrap it up, there was one more thing that I wanted to ask you specifically that pertained to the video. And now, I can't remember what it was, but we covered a lot lot of what you said, and I look forward to seeing what the rest of the response in the video is, and I look forward to seeing what the response to our conversation today is, because, you know, there's a lot more questions that people have. So I also think that there's a lot we could do. I want to build like some kind of a community where you get people, because of the issues we're talking about of self-segregation, where we force people on to like a Zoom, like I've kind of been doing. And we had one last night. I wish you were there, and I hope you'll be at the next one. But like there were four black women like did most of the talking, and the rest of the white people just sat there and listened. It was really magical in a way and fascinating. But it was just this kind of access. I know it sounds kind of tokeny and kind of patronizing, but it's like access to each other. Like I think white people need to have more access to black people that they don't work with, so that they can feel comfortable asking them things or saying things and not have to worry about some kind of HR infraction or how they're going to feel at work or feel, you know, things like that. Right. And we just don't make those social choices. And I want to kind of try to connect people technologically, remotely, the way we're, the way we're doing now, you know, because if we're going to continue to live where we live and socialize the way we socialize, we've got to do, that's the answer to what you were saying. We've got to do better to be around people that are different from us. And that's hard to do sometimes in your community when there's not enough diversity. You're not going to get up and move just to have a more diverse neighborhood. That'd be great.
Well, I mean, some people will, but the average
certainly some people will. You should consider it if you're going to move. You should consider not moving in a neighborhood just like you. But people, the problem is with that, for us, the problem with schools. We weren't thinking about the diversity. We wanted a diversity, but the good schools were in the white neighborhoods, and that's a setup.
Absolutely, and that's why in my video, you know, I talked about, I'm like, hey, question your assumptions, because it's so easy. Oh, you know, we just want the best schools. I'm like, yes, it makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. It's like, and stop and consider, like, okay, are the best schools in the white neighborhoods because white people are better? Is there something
property
else
taxes?
It's absolutely, it's property taxes. It's any number.
It's resources,
and it is questioning those things that you have just always assumed as fact. Well, this is just how it is. It's like it may not just be.
Well, we were saying along those lines, along those exact lines, the school in the district right next to us is way more diverse. It's got a huge black community in that district, and my daughter said to me, is our school better than that school? I was like, yeah, in terms of college acceptance rates, absolutely, and things like that. But how do we look at school? Is it the best courses, the best resources, the best teachers? Because what is school? School is much about the environment that you're in. And so why don't I want my kids in a school that might not have the same reputation in terms of getting into colleges, but will afford them experiences with a more diverse group of people ethnically that will make them richer by almost every measure, and potentially even the most traditional measures.
Well, and that's where you get into checking your assumptions. Okay, well, I go to a school that has the best, you know, history classes and the best math classes, and are going to help me get the best scores on a standardized test. And by so many measures, those are the things that get you into the best schools. If somehow we were to switch and say, oh, you know what, if colleges were just to say, you know what, yeah, we care about the test. And I think to some extent this is happening with more and more schools that are more and more colleges that are becoming like kind of test optional. But if you had colleges overall say, you know, we really are going to value a lot more people who like have shown that they really know more about the world and more about like the communities that they live in, you would see a switch pretty quickly. Like, oh, okay, wait. So being in a monochromatic school with really great classes, but where I don't get to know much about the world outside of me, that won't get me into a good college. Like you would see a switch in how we
incentivizing diversity as a way to create acceptance in the college is an interesting idea, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey man, this is a great talk. Love talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm glad I could make time to do it.
Sweet knot. That is a sweet. Like, do you know how good that knot? It's a perfect triangle. How long have you been wearing ties? 20 years?
Oh, I've been wearing ties since shit, I think the first tie I wore was probably maybe 10 or 11. I mean, you got to understand, I grew up in a family, and this is more my dad, but I get my overall style and whatnot, and my appreciation for fashion from him. And he was somebody that was not okay with me walking around with holes in my jeans. He also, like, literally, if I tore up my jeans and I didn't, we didn't either donate them or whatever, and I was walking around with holes in my jeans, like, he would actually have a conversation with me. In fact, one time, it's funny because this was after my parents divorced. One time I was at church, and by that time I was already at the private school that I graduated from high school, and we had a uniform, which was, button-down Oxford shirt, khakis, and nice loafers or whatever. I was wearing that to church, and he just happened, because they were already divorced. He was living in another city, and for whatever reason, it was weird. He just happened to show up at church. And after church, he was like, "What are you wearing?" I'm like, "What do you mean what I'm wearing?" Like, "You look like you're just kind of hanging out. You don't look like you're dressed for church." So, I mean, these are the standards that I grew up with as a kid. So, yeah, this is something I've been working on for a while, and there's still other knots. Like, man, I got to get that double Windsor down.
That's hilarious that you have ambition for a better knot. I'm looking at that knot I'm looking at that knot saying you're at the mountaintop, and you think you can make a better knot. So let me ask you this. Based on all of that, and we talked about this actually before we press record, Cornell Woolrich in a shirt and tie versus a hoodie and a sweatsuit. How does the public treat you? Is that a social experiment that you've? If I were you, if I were a black person, a minority, I would just constantly be trying those things out. I feel.
What's really funny? What's really funny is this was. I mean, it's funny. It's also kind of tragic, but this is probably 2015. I actually decided, I was like, you know what? My brother had passed, and I had quite a bit of his clothes that that we either just didn't donate or I liked and I could wear. And one day I'm like, you know what? Because I typically look like this. I mean, not all the time, but I typically dress pretty well. And he loved like kind of tracksuits. I've never been a huge tracksuit kind of person. I'm like, you know what? I like this. I like this color. I like this. I'm going to try this. And I'm like, I'm going to wear this. Like, and at this point, my partner and I, we were living actually in a pretty nice part of Maryland, not like the upper echelon, but one of the better counties. And it's actually Columbia, Maryland, which if you haven't ever checked out Columbia, Maryland, you should Google Columbia, Maryland. It'll blow your mind how they came up with the city, but a nice, pretty comfortable place. And so I'm like, I'm going to wear this tracksuit with a hat to the side, which I don't usually wear that way. Like, I'm going to dress this way today and see, like, this area that I usually walk in all the time, see what changes. And it was pretty
usually
dramatic.
Walk in an area around dressed a little more formally absolutely. I don't know. And now you get casual in the is there anything overt that you would say? Did you mean any are there Karens everywhere? Karens behind every tree. And what's the male? I don't want to be that sexist. I say Chad. Ken?
Ken and Chad. Ken and Karens.
Ken and Karens behind every tree. Like I see a black man breathing.
Right, he's in a coordinated urban outfit.
I see an urban-looking person in a suburban area.
So most of it, and this is the most difficult part of this experience, which is where it gets all pent up, is that it's rarely like overt anymore. Like and in fact, I know you were in your conversation with Tiffany Cross. Loved it, by the way. That was awesome.
He's great.
And one of the parts you all were talking about, you were asking there's the question, are things like more racist now? Or are we just now seeing it more? And I heard that, and I'm like, I would say that things are worse now. I'm not saying it happens more now, but it's worse. And I'd say it's worse because back in like the civil rights movement, in that time, it was the people like stringing up and hanging and lynching Black people, it wasn't usually law. Law would turn their backs. They'd be like, okay, yeah, we know something happened.
I see.
We're just going to hang out, eat a sandwich, and just not be a part of it. But now, like with George Floyd and with so many others, it's people who are literally charged with defending and ensuring peace among the public who are straight up killing.
Well, that's enough.
It was like, okay, it's not just people
That's
anymore.
fascinating. I bet you there's some scholarship on the idea that the public went from being the terrorists to allowing the state to be the terrorists and using the system, especially, I mean, I can't talk very articulately about any time other than, starting in the 90s and, with mass incarceration with the crack epidemic and so on. And but like, certainly that was like, oh, we'll let the police take care of them. We don't need to do it anymore. And obviously not just talking about point of arrest. We're talking about the justice system. And we've been talking about that. Did you hear my conversation with Barksdale Houghtonstein Jr.?
I have not heard. I haven't heard.
I can't wait to hear what you think about him or any public defender in America.
Well, and the other way that I feel like it's worse is that, at least as far as today, or just, I'll say more challenging, not worse, it's more challenging, is that at least in the 60s, they say, hey, you know what, you're a nigger. I don't like you because you're a nigger. You shouldn't be here. You don't belong here because you're a nigger. Now it's, they would never say that. I mean, the worst thing you can call a racist person now is a racist. You can call them any number of things, but the moment you call them a racist, they lose it. You can say they do racist things. You can say they hang around racist people. But if you call them racist, they're like, oh my God, you have shamed my family forever. And so there isn't that overt like, hey, you're Black, I don't want you here. It's more like, we would just like you to leave. It's private property. We have the right. We would like you to go. And like, okay, so why am I going? And you can assume, and you're probably right, but you can't go anywhere with that. You can't say, oh, look, I got tossed off this property because I'm Black. I just got tossed off the property and I didn't see anybody else who looked like me.
Yeah, that's like voter ID.
Right, exactly. And I mean, and it's
not an overtly racist thing, but it clearly is identifying, Black folks, people of color, and young people too in college campuses and so on that don't have IDs and can't vote. But it's I see what you're saying.
And so for the reason that you have more law enforcement that is actually taking a part of like the modern day lynching, unlike before, and it was the people and the law just kind of turned their backs. And today you have such covert racism and such microaggressions that cannot be proven.
Right. Why?
I feel like that could really, you can make a case that it is more difficult now, not worse. It's different, and it's different makes it more difficult because you just cannot make a solid case, whether it be in a court or even to a group of people. You can have your friends like, I don't know, would you really think he said that because you're Black? I mean, aren't you being sensitive? It's just, like, okay, well, I can't prove it to you because they did it and they're used to doing it so covertly that unless you know to look for it, you're not going to notice.
Really interesting what you said, but the worst thing you can call a racist is a racist. Why do you think that is? Do you think? I tend to think that really overtly racist people have no idea what racism is. That's why they don't know that they're racist. They don't even understand the concept, which is really bending over backwards to give people, super ignorant people the benefit of the doubt. But I do wonder what you think about that whole idea.
Here's why I think racists have such an issue being called racist. It's because in this country, there is like part of the American dream is fairness. And it is people, you work hard, you do the right things, you're going to be treated fairly, you're going to have a chance to have an awesome life in this country. And so racists don't want to be told, hey, you're not playing by the rules. You are breaking the rules. You are treating me outside of the rules of society that you buy into. It's like, oh, no. I mean, I'm being fair. I mean, stop and consider how many times you hear President Trump talk about people being treated unfairly. Like one of the main things he will say when he's trying to defend, somebody that he's supporting that maybe did some really crappy things. It's just not being treated.
Well, yeah, Mike Flynn and every single person that's been arrested and indicted, and mostly himself. No one's ever treated a president more unfairly. No one. Right. And Lincoln's like, hey, come on. They fucking blew my head off. Kennedy.
Right. Exactly. And so people who are racist still believe in this American dream where you play by the rules, you're going to be okay. And they don't want to be accused of not playing by the rules. So when you say they're being racist, they're not playing by rules. Like, oh, no. I'm going to find every way possible to prove to you that I'm playing by the rules and you just don't understand the rules or you don't understand what I'm doing. But you're not going to accuse me of not playing by the rules.
That's one good explanation for that. And I bet you there are a lot more as well about why racist people don't like to be called racist. That's a question that anybody listening to our conversation right now, I'd love to submit for them to answer. All right, man. I won't take up any more of your time. I certainly love talking to you like this, and look forward to doing it again. Thanks for being a part of my life and this program, and it's for a lot of its lifetime.
You are so welcome. I'm so glad that again we connected over the airwaves. 9 years ago?
That right? Yeah.
I was driving back to Pennsylvania, and it's just every time we get to talk, I get to hear you talk with people and them engaging with you and you being curious and again, recognizing, hey, there's a lot I don't know. So I'm going to ask questions. Like it's awesome to see that as an example. And while I'm sure you could look at your life and say, yeah, there's so many more things I could be doing better or differently. You're still like every time you're talking to somebody, especially that doesn't necessarily look or live like you, you're asking questions to better understand. And that's what I was saying in the video. It's about doing what you can to understand another way of being, another person's experience that so much of the world around you tells you the other and says it's better if you do other, because if you get into that, it's going to be really tricky. It's taking that step as many times as you can to ask those questions. Like, okay, wait, I may be accused of being an asshole, and I can say I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm trying to understand. And yeah, it'll be awkward, and you'll get over it. And you do that all the time on your shows and on your podcasts, and it's awesome. And it's one of the reasons why I'm still a fan, and that we've become friends, and that I look forward to being in your life for a long time.
Awesome,
man.
pal. I realized you haven't really, not on Twitter and not on text and not here, been too concerned about my experience. And it's been pretty overt. I've got poison ivy. And you don't seem to care. It's almost as if you're saying, your
life doesn't matter.
It's almost as if you don't think my life matters. Can you see it?
I don't think you're poison. I don't think you're poison.
Can you see it?
Poison ivy life matters. I know. Yeah,
you don't care.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Peter. I hope the plight of your life that has come from the poison ivy, that you're able to heal that wound, and that you're able to get over it and connect with other people who have also experienced that plight, because you're not alone.
Plight.
Other people have experienced that poison ivy plight, and you should come together and share your experience with the world so they can better understand.
I'm trying. I'm doing my part. Thank you, pal.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Cornell Woolrich. We just kept talking, just kept going. Did you listen to that all the way to the end? Let's never know. Last night on Zoom, someone mentioned about how they don't miss the show on Sirius XM because even though it was longer form, there were still commercials, and they hated when I was having a great conversation, I had it interrupted with a Cars for Kids commercial or something. And so the way I feel about it is, the podcast at least, is I put as much out as I can every day, and hopefully you will find at least one of the 2 to 3 guests interesting. Maybe you're listening in speed and a half or double speed to get through the things that you might not like. But if I'm having a great conversation with someone the way I was with Cornell, I want to record it, I want to share it with you, and hopefully you like it. Some days you will, and some days you might not be as interested, but I'm doing my best to put as much out as I can for each show so that you'll find something that you'll be able to connect with, and feel good about after hearing it, that you learned something, you felt more enlightened, that you grew. And we're growing together. You guys teach me new stuff every day. And if you think that you have something to say, you'd like to join me right here on the podcast, or you know somebody who would, then send them my way. Or let me know. I'll give you a call, we'll chat, talk about it, see how it sounds, and maybe we'll do it. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the podcast. Sign up for a paid subscription if you haven't already, and know that you are not alone. I'm right there with you. Ups, downs, stay connected, stay strong as much as you can. Enjoy your cries when you have them, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Because I love you. I do. I know you love me, and it feels good. Seriously, a lot of love. All right.